Good morning, Stampers. It's Pat with Fairless Stamp and Flair. And here today I am with you for Connect to Create. Connect to Create is a collaboration between Kathy Ondas and myself. And each week we come and bring you a technique or a tip. And we typically don't make a card or a full card, but some weeks we may. But we will always show you cards that use that technique once we have shown you how to do it. So today we're probably expecting to see Kathy, but Kathy's feeling a little bit under the weather. So I am doing the video for today, and the technique I'm going to share is called Black Ice. So I hope you like it. It's a very simple but kind of dramatic technique. Once it's done, it looks much harder than it actually is. So let's go ahead and flip the camera down and get started. All right, so Black Ice is done basically with, you need foil cardstock, and you can use any color. Most often it's done, or most often I've done it with silver foil. But today I'm actually going to use some gold foil, and I know you're going to get lots of reflections. Not a lot I can do about that. Foil is shiny and it's going to reflect. So I will also show you some cards, as I indicated, when we're done, and I'm going to show you some cards that I used a couple of different colors of foil. So we start out with a piece of foil, and we need StazOn ink or some sort of permanent ink. I'm going to use black StazOn. And we need clear embossing powder and some Versamark. So first of all, we add our StazOn ink, and I like to cover my foil up to keep fingerprints off, but I want to be able to hold it down. So I'm going to cover it with this, just a piece of scrap paper. And we're going to take our StazOn ink, and using the edge of our pad, we're just going to drag it across the gold. And you may need to do it a few times. You don't want to get too much, but the goal is to kind of get a few streaks and a black along the edge. So once that's good, I'm going to move this to the other side and try not to block what I'm doing, but I need to hold this down and drag it across. And you just drag it until you're happy with what it looks like. You don't put a lot of weight or pressure with your pad. You just kind of let the pad do the work. And then we're going to flip it over and do it to the other side so that we get this little edge on both sides. As you can see, I'm doing it a few times, but I'm really putting very little pressure. We're going to flip it back over and get the other side. Oops, did that wrong. I just need to move my paper, don't I? Oh, troubles. Okay, there we go. Drag. And if you're getting too much in the center, just kind of lift up as you go. What you don't want to do is put your pad in the center and start, because you'll get a black line where that is. And that just doesn't really look so great. So, okay, I'm going to get rid of this. I got black all over it, so I don't want to get that on there. So that's my step number one. Now we're going to stamp an image on here. And I highly recommend, when you're stamping on your foil, that you use a Stamparatus or some sort of similar positioning tool. So I'm going to bring in my Stamparatus. I've already marked where this needs to be based on where my stamp is, so I didn't have to make you watch me do that. We do try to be efficient with these videos. The stamp set I'm using is called Uniquely Artistic, and it's this particular stamp set right here. I'm going to use this stamp. I found that when I use this ice technique, I like to use line images, but play around. Pick something you like. You could certainly use a solid image like this. I've never tried these distinctive type of images, so I'm not sure how that would look once you do this, because you've already got some kind of distressing going on there already. But I'm going to use this particular stamp right here. And you can see it's on my Stamparatus already, and I have it lined up with my cardstock. So now I'm going to ink this up, and maybe I should move this over just a tad. I like to stick my stamp case under here. It's the perfect height to give me a little bit of support. And I'm going to go ahead and ink up this stamp very well with my black StazOn. Because this is a photopolymer stamp, I am going to try my best not to have to do it more than once. So I want to make sure it's really inked. If you're using a clear stamp with the rubber, it's a little bit different, and I will show you why in a minute. So let's go ahead and stamp this down on here, and I'm going to press really hard to make sure I get a good image the very first time. Now, that sort of defeats what we normally say about a Stamparatus, is you can stamp multiple times if you didn't get a good image. And that is very true. But with these photopolymer stamp sets, what I have found is, let's see if I can get rid of some of this glare. I don't know, not really. What I have found is when I go to pick this up now, see how it sticks to my foil? And I'm telling you, it is really stuck. So by the time I get it up and get it off, I have lost my positioning. Now I could try to put it back where I marked it and redo it, but I'm not sure I'm that good to get it exactly. So I really do try to get, with this technique, get a good first impression. And you can, if you can see that, in spite of all the glare, you can see I did get a good impression. So now the second step here, I'm going to bring this piece of scrap paper back in and use the other side. We do want to make sure this is very dry, but the second step is to basically repeat the process with Versamark. Maybe I'll just hit this with my heat tool a minute, get a chance to warm up, just to make sure it's dry. So you can hear me talking. Sometimes it works all right. This should be good. Okay, so now I'm going to repeat that dragging process across here with my Versamark pad. Now I've got a kind of inky black old Versamark. I tend to save this one for this. This is StazOn. It does not, it's permanent ink, but for some reason you can see sometimes it does pick up on your Versamark pad. So I didn't want to use a nice bright clean one. So I use this old one. It's still inked. I re-inked it. And now I'm just going to drag this across here again. And you don't want to get a solid amount of embossing or of Versamark. So again, it's just the weight of the pad, and just drag it maybe a couple times. You can always add if you need a little bit more, but you'll see why. Because you want this to look very streaky. Now it's clear, so streaky is relevant, right? You're not really going to see streaks per se, but you do want it to be textured looking. You don't want it to be just a complete glassy appearance across the whole thing. You want to see some texture. So let me go ahead and sprinkle this on here. I'm a strong believer in just dumping a bunch on and then moving it around. Now this is probably going to be a little hard to see. Out of our way. I don't know. There are some spots you will be able to see really don't have Versamark on or very little. For example, this spot over here, if I tip it that way, you can see where there's some white powder and where you're getting more shine. Over on here, there's not as much in this area and along this edge, but that's good. That's what we're after. So now I'm going to heat this up with my heat tool. My stuff out of the way. And you want to be careful how you hold this. First of all, you don't really want to wipe it off. And secondly, it gets very hot because it's foil. So you don't want to burn yourself. And you don't want to hold it in one place too long, because I don't know if you've ever embossed on foil. It's fine, but if you overheat it, the foil will tend to curl off the paper on the backing, which I've done many times. So I'm going to try not to do that today. Let me bring this in, and you will also notice, or at least I hope you'll notice, it might be hard to see, but look at the black spots. And once the black spots where there's Versamark starts to melt, the black will really start to pop and shine. So let's go ahead. And once it turns black, you can see here along the edge how it's turning black. I hope you can see that. And then I just move along. Until the whole piece is done. Oh, I see my finger now. All right. Okay. I am going to check that out. I see a little spot over here that still has some white, which is the Versamark or the embossing powder. So let me just try to finish that spot. There we go. Okay. Now let's look carefully and see if I got any more of that dusty white area. I did lose a bit of my streaky right here where I rubbed my fingernail, but that's okay. It just adds to the character a little bit. I'm going to try to bring this up. I hope you can see that texture and that extra little, it's actually bumpy because it's not solid with the Versamark. So I think you can see that. It kind of looks like bad ice. It's not like clear, shiny ice, but that is black ice. And this is done on gold embossing powder, or gold foil, sorry. And so let me show you the card that I made with that. Here's my card. This uses the Texture Chic Designer Series paper, which has gold in it. But the focal point is the black ice. So that is my first card. And then here's my envelope. Always do my envelope. And I didn't do much to the inside. I just used a gold matte. Now you're probably wondering, wow, that's a lot of gold foil paper to put behind there, but not really, because I used the largest stitched rectangle die that I could fit on here and still make sure I had a border, and I cut that out. So this whole center part is empty. That's always something, just a little hint and trick. That was for photos. I have to take off that little sticky. But that's a good tip when you want to mat something with foil, but you don't really want to use that whole big giant piece of foil because foil's expensive, right? And if you're only going to show the edge, that's a lot. So just use a large die that you have and cut out the center, and you can save that piece and use it elsewhere. So, okay, so that's my first card. Now I have a very similar card that I made with silver foil. designs of the cards a little bit different. This uses the Hues of Happiness Designer Series paper, but I used the same stamp. Guess I have it upside down. Flipped it around. And if you can see the foil, the black ice, you can see the texture in some places. Where it really reflects, that means there's not very much Versamark right there. So that's card number 2. Here's my, I'd like to cover the envelopes if I'm using designer paper. And then I kept the inside also. Just use the same strip like I used back here. Okay, and I have one more card to show you. This is a double fold card, and it's a sneak peek of a new designer series paper, Dainty Daisies or Daisy something. I forget the name. It's going to be a celebration item starting in January. And I got my order. We can pre-order a little early, so I got that. I thought I'd use it. This is the inside of that paper. It's got some beautiful color wash papers in it. And if you're a flower lover, lots of daisies. But here's the black ice technique. And on this one, this is also from our silver foil pack, but our silver foil has 3 colors in it, and 2 of them are actually, in my mind, more purple than silver. One of them is quite dark, and this is the middle one. It's kind of a light pale purple, probably like a cross between Gorgeous Grape and Highland Heather. In the color family, but I mixed it with Starry Sky and it looks kind of nice with that, but you can see it's a little bit different color. And I used the Butterfly Brilliance stamp set to stamp a butterfly on there. So that's my 3rd card. But you can see you can use any color foil for this technique. I'd like to try we have these blue foils and one was kind of a light blue. If you're going to try it, I'd recommend that you start with like a lighter color foil. If you have too dark of a color, there's probably not going to be a great amount of contrast between your black and whatever you're stamping on. So start with the lighter colors, but give it a try. It's a lot of fun. So let me switch my camera back over here. Oops. All right, I'm back. Kathy's teaching me new ways to use this software to switch my pictures back and forth. So it's a little bit easier, but I'm still not quite used to it. So I kind of mess it up occasionally, but that's me. Technology and myself are not the best buddies, but I'm learning. I'm determined I'm going to learn. So I hope you've enjoyed this video today with the black ice technique. I hope you give it a try. And I should see you back here next week on Thursday. Next week is my normal week, and so let's hope Kathy feels better, but I'm determined to make sure she just takes this week off and rests and gets better. So get better, Kathy. Hope you're feeling well soon. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.